Welcome to another YouTube video. Today we're going to be talking about a novel written by Daniel Greene called Neon Ghosts, A Witch's Sin. So the other day I was looking through my Audible, trying to find something fresh, new, something to listen to while I walked my dog. The only books I've read published in the year 2023 have been The Secret Projects. I wanted to try something else new in the space, and I remembered Neon Ghosts. I vaguely remember Daniel Greene mentioning that all the proceeds go to charity, so I figured, why not give it a try? If it's bad, at least the money goes to a good place. My only other experience with a YouTuber book was buying my little sister one years ago for Christmas, and while she seemed to really like it a lot, my glance through it made me certain it definitely wasn't for me. So my expectations for this book were bottom of the barrel. Thankfully, I can actually say this book was pretty good. The start of a book like this is always hard. The setup for the world building is clunky and dumpy. It isn't horrible how things are described, but it's far from top tier. And then the main character comes off as unhinged in the first chapter. Her banter with her partner seems to have more malice than friendly teasing. And then she straight up just screams at people to get them back into their rooms. Like, not using words, just screams at them and they just move off because it's awkward. However, the vampire debate with the algorithm AI in the second chapter was a far, far more engaging method of world building. That was implemented really well, showcasing the conflicts and viewpoints of different peoples. And the fact it was two non-human entities arguing about what it means to be human and humanity, it was just really engaging. In all, the first chapter of this book is by far the worst chapter. It sets the tone, and it sets up the groundwork for a couple things in the future, but it doesn't do much good other than that. It almost turned me away completely. In the first chapter, we get to see Taya act on a guilty until proven innocent mindset. This works a bit because she's not real police, but it still left me conflicted on whether or not I liked her. Part of me thinks it would have been better narratively if the culprit was actually being framed, giving Taya more of a reason to pause later when she confronts Oscar. But the other part is like, yeah, that dude kind of turned out to be really, really, really scummy. So I can't muster that much pity for him. Thankfully, the book was completely uphill after the first chapter. I think some of the character work, especially, was phenomenally done. I was worried when Juno's character was first introduced. Her archetype of best friend characters can be difficult to write in a way that doesn't come off as over the top and in an oblivion, annoying fan kind of way. You can see that in my recent review of Dark One Forgotten. But while she didn't have the same depth as some other characters like Jordan or Quinn, she was actually incredibly pleasant to have on the page. I never once minded her screen time. In fact, her relationship with Taya started to remind me of the best friend from Tokyo Ghoul towards the end. Hopefully, for her sake, it doesn't end the same way. But it would be wonder from a narrative point of view. I love Oscar, but he lets a lot of stuff pass. The MC used him, purposefully misleading him to get information about something she thought he would disapprove of. But then he's just like, yeah, I'll let it slide. You killed that guy and used me to kill him, whatever. I get that being undead means you end up with an abundance amount of patience, but still. However, once I realized he was being advised by Jordan the Witch, it made a lot more sense why he made the calls he did. The get your shit together moment of seeing Taya's client dead was incredibly well done. All of her sloppy behavior, which people constantly warned her about, finally caught up to her. You can feel her attitude shift afterwards as she finally wakes up and starts to take things more seriously. Even if she does still make a lot of mistakes, her actions have consequences, and it adds to the stakes of the story exponentially. The mechanic's input on Taya's mentor was really interesting as well. Hearing about him from someone else with a different viewpoint made me question things. Because while Taya is sometimes very hostile and rude to Quinn, he's always very kind in return. He generally seems like a good dude who's down on his luck and makes iffy decisions from time to time. I mean, he sends her sad puppy gifts. And maybe it's me getting older, but I didn't want Taya to get vengeance on Quinn. He was my favorite character because he was so complex and interesting. But it goes beyond that as well. Killing Quinn, I think, was horrible for Taya as a person. This is someone who genuinely cared about her. There are others who liked her, but no one else that did as much for her, and without asking for anything in return. There are so many points when she commented on something that he gave her or something that he did for her. Was he a good person? No, but he wasn't an evil person. He was a person who wanted to choose the best path forward. When you try looking from his perspective, you can see how he justified things. Killing a vampire who's lived 10 times the life of a human. Kill an old lady who's already in her twilight years, or die himself. It wasn't right, but it was realistic. And then there's the final mystery of what he wanted this money for. It was commented on how he already made enough money as an officer, but he also worked as an enforcer. But then on top of that, he was working dirty stuff as well. That's 3 sources of income with very little spent it on. I think that once we discover where that money was going, we're gonna understand him a lot better. It's so disappointing that he's gone now, but at least I don't think his story is over. We had glimpses at his past, in the haze and his friendship with Taya's fiancée, but there's still so much to uncover in those future novels. And then when you look at Quinn juxtaposed with Jordan, you realize how much worse she is. They act as foils for one another. It's no mistake that as soon as Taya loses one mentor, suddenly another one is there reaching out a hand. And a knife. Taya sees Quinn manipulating her into killing Oscar. But Jordan was the one that manipulated Quinn into manipulating her. Does it excuse him? No, not at all. But it's still an interesting examination. I think there's a firm argument that she is a far worse person than Quinn ever was. The connection between Jordan and Taya is very similar to that of a water bond from Wheel of Time. It's a mirror to Rand's unwelcome water bond with Alana. In fact, I would say Jordan would be an ideal Aes Sedai and would rise very high in the White Tower. And I mean, her name is Jordan, of all things. You can't get more obvious than that. There are a few minor plot holes. Like, why don't people have augments that would make their blood less desirable to vampires? It seems like that tech would be in high demand. And Oscar makes it sound like anything other than pure human blood doesn't satisfy. And Taya even gets augments done on her heart. So onto the pacing. The action is well done and engaging. Taya uses all the tools at her disposal to resolve conflicts at hand. I never questioned her decisions while she fought. She knew what to do far better than I ever would have. I really liked that we got to see a gun at the beginning of the book have a real relevance later in the book. It was a great setup and payoff, and there are many things like that throughout the book. Beyond that, though, the pacing had several stalls at points. At some points things would drag, but then at other points things would happen too quickly. Taya believed the witch's story way too readily. She dismissed drugs because she'd never had a trip like that. She dismissed technology because she couldn't explain the things done. But she lives in a science fiction world. There's tech she's never seen and drugs she's never heard of. Listen, I like that we get to the point without meandering around the "is this real?" question for 100 pages. But this is unbelievably quick. And it had to be because it was required narratively. But I think a far better option would be to introduce magic in the first act of the novel and then have Taya slowly come around to it, instead of having it introduced and then have her decide it's real within the next 10 pages. Other things we were left without satisfying payment for, like how Taya got her heart worked on, like I mentioned earlier. As far as I'm aware, this didn't actually accomplish anything meaningful. And then there are several things we didn't get to see, but I suspect we're going to be saved for the next novel. For example, Oscar asking the mechanic about augments for the vampires, but we never see Taya get them installed. We also never get to see the damage fixed to Oscar's home, something I really thought we would see in the end. We never dive into Taya's terrible relationship with her parents. However, I think these might be seeds for the future rather than forgotten points. I think there are many incredibly well done things in this novel, and it exceeded my expectations in every way. It was a good book. Not amongst the greats, but definitely amongst the good, and better than many, many other published authors. I'd give it a strong 7.5. I'm genuinely excited to pick up the next novel. If you like cyberpunk stories like Deus Ex or Edge Runners, this is a book for you. And I will say with high praises, this might be the best vampire novel I've ever read. And I grew up in the years of the Twilight Wake, so I've read my fair share. In all, I highly recommend this book. Anyways, let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. And I will see you in the next one. Thank you. Bye-bye. see it.